going to talk about is matter in our surroundings. So without any further ado, let's start the chapter. This is all about matter. Let us first understand what is matter. Matter is anything that occupies space and has mass. Everything that we are seeing around us, that we have in our environment, the largest to largest things like the islands, continents, buildings, and even the smallest to smallest things like a grain of sand, all are matter because they have mass and they occupy space. Everything that exists in the universe has a mass, so we can say that everything is matter. But there are still some other things which we can't say that they are matter, such as energy, light. Light is not a matter, and heat energy, that's not a matter because that does not occupy any space and does not have any mass. In the ancient times, people believed that everything that exists in this universe are made up of Part-1. But later, the modern scientists discovered that there are 3 states of matter who are responsible for making all the other things, and they are the solids, liquids and gases. Now, matter can be classified on the basis of physical and on the basis of chemical. In this chapter, I am going to talk about the physical classification because chemical classification is not there in this chapter. So, on the basis of physical classification, matter can be divided into 3 types, which I have already said: solids, liquids and gases. Each of the states have their different properties, which we are going to discuss. But before that, we will talk about what is matter made up of, so that it will be easy for us to understand the properties of each of the states of matter. This matter, when we see or when we touch, we can feel that they are continuous. But if you view it under a microscope, you will observe a very strange thing. These objects are made up of small particles. They are not continuous. These small particles which make up a matter are called atoms, or we can say particles of matter. Now, these particles of matter also have their properties. Let us talk about the properties of particles of matter first. The first property is particles of matter are continuously moving. Let me show a proof so that it will be easy for you to understand it. Suppose you take a beaker where you have poured some water. If you apply a drop or 2 drops of ink, then you will notice that the whole water in a minute will turn out the color of the ink. That's because the particles of the ink are continuously moving, and also the particles of the water. When you apply a drop of ink in the water, the particles of the ink will spread out throughout the water. It will come in contact to all the particles of water, because of which the water in a minute will turn to the ink of the color. Now, the second property of particles of matter are particles of matter have spaces between them. It sounds a bit strange, but let me also give a proof for this. Let us take one similar example. If you take a beaker and if you apply some water, if you mark the level of water, and after that you have to just add some amount of salt or sugar in that water, you will notice that after a while the salt or sugar gaps disappears. Why is that so? And even the level of the water does not increase. This is only because particles of matter have spaces between them. The particles of salts or sugars get inside the particles of water because there are some spaces, so it can get inside easily. If it gets fitted, then the water level of course will not increase. So this is how we see that particles of matter have spaces between them. Now, the third property of matter is Particles of matter attract each other. This may vary in solids, liquids and gases, but all the particles are attracting each other. I can give an example of if you take an iron nail and if you try to beat it with a hammer, it will not going to break easily. This is because the particles attract each other. If you try your best to break the nail, it is not going to break easily because the particles will always attract each other. Now I hope all of you understood the third properties of particles of matter. Now it will be easy for us to understand the states of matter. So let us first talk about the first state of matter, which comes under physical classification, and that is solid. As I have already said that each states have their own properties. Let me talk about the properties of solids. Solids have a definite shape. They are rigid. We can't bend them easily. And the solids are non-compressible. Solids cannot be compressed. And the reason is the particles that are present inside solid matter, these particles are very closely packed to each other. They have a strong force of attraction between them. So they always attach each other. And that's the reason we can't compress them, because there's no more spaces between them. So how can they come closer to each other? So that's the reason solids can't be compressed. Now there are some other properties like solids they have their definite boundaries. If I keep a chair here and if I come after 2 days, if there is no force to be exerted in the chair, then it will remain in the same place. It can't extend in boundaries. Now similarly, liquids also have their own properties. Liquids does not have a definite shape. As we all know that, does water have a definite shape? It does not. And it is not even rigid. It's not that hard. The particles that are present inside water or any other liquids, they have little spaces between them. Neither so much spaces nor so less spaces. Intermediate. So that's why liquids can also be compressed, but not that much. They can be compressed, but a very less amount. Now let us talk about the properties of gases. And yes, I also missed fluidity, which is a property of liquid. Liquid can flow. The property due to which a substance can flow, or the tendency to flow, is called fluidity. Liquids and gases both have the property of fluidity. If I apply some water or any other fluid or liquid in this podium, you will notice that the water gets spread out. The water can even fall down. It is because liquids does not even have their own or fixed boundary. Now let us come to gases. The properties of gases and liquids are somehow similar. Gases also have the property of fluidity. They are also not rigid. They do not have fixed boundaries, but gases are compressible. They can be compressed in a big amount, because in the particles of gases there are many spaces between them. There is a very less force of attraction in the particles of matter. They move freely in different directions and they have lots of spaces between them. And that's the reason we can compress it easily, because these particles can come closer. Now, I hope all of you are clear with the three states of matter and their properties.